That's your boy Gooch.
Wrong way. That is the homie Keys.
And this is the RogueHead Huddle presented by RGR Football. Gooch?
Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having another awesome Friday. We certainly are. Make sure you go back and check out all the other things on the RGR channel. The live streams with Seth on Thursday, live stream Q&A on Monday with Ryan, film breakdowns, divisional weekend, man, was awesome. Hit the RGR store, get a mug, get a hoodie. I believe the All Juice stuff is also there. Check that stuff out and take this walk with us. Um, it's going to be fun.
Happy thought on the Bills game.
Happy thoughts. And you know what, man? Look, I'm going to start with the first happy thought, and I'm going to say that this was probably the best game I've ever seen. I could find ways to nitpick it, but I think nitpicking it wouldn't do it justice. I mean, yes, we lost our leader on the defense. Yes, we probably gave up more points than we should have. But overall, like, it really was a good game. I was watching, can't think of what I was watching, but uh, Swagoo said it was like the perfect movie. Like, it had ups, downs, cliffhangers. Um, Kudos to Josh Allen. That boy played like a stud, better than I thought he would play for sure. And I think I think a lot of kudos goes out to both teams. A lot of heart in that game, a lot of refusal to quit, even when it seemed dire. I mean, it was just was it three lead changes in the last 2 minutes, 25 points or whatever. I mean, that's crazy. Um, I don't want to nitpick this because I think I just want to even now just sit back and as a fan of football, not even of the Chiefs, just of football, and just think about, man, that was a game. Like, I could watch, knowing the outcome, I would still watch it again. That's how good it was. Um, and that's all I really got to say about it. Like, I'm super proud of the team. Um, and once again, like you and I said, the road to the Super Bowl goes through Arrowhead, which all in all is great. I'm super happy, so I'm not going to nitpick it. Good win. Go Chiefs.
Yeah, there are maybe 3 or 4 games that I would go back and watch over again. One being the game against the Texans, one being probably Bills last year, and
Yeah.
of course the Super Bowl 54, and then this game. And, whether it was CEH getting like 2 of his longest career runs in this game, the offensive line did a pretty good job. Um, and, I think. I think Travis showed that maybe he could be tight ends coach, wide receivers coach, offensive coordinator, all while also being a player. So you know that was kind of fun. Pringle made some more plays. Hardman's been making more plays. He made some big plays in this game. We got to see Tyreek back at returner again. Second week in a row in the playoffs. We've seen we've gotten to witness the return of Tyreek as a return man, and I would expect we see it for the third week in a row. Because the margins for error get that much smaller in the playoffs. We saw it in the Green Bay game. Special teams can make or break your game for you. At this point of the season, it really has to be at least 2 out of 3 phases, and you can't have one phase that just completely lets you down unless you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. And mechanically, I thought he looked pretty good in this game. He pulled out all the throws in his repertoire. Um, I saw some people break down some of his film. He was getting back into his base when he was making throws. We were fairly healthy in this game. Tyreek had his breakout plays, and Frank had some moments. Chris and Jerron had their moments. Ingram continued, to play how he was playing. And Reed kept Andy kept the offense aggressive, and so those are my positives for the game. Those are my happy thoughts on the game. The last few minutes were both the most amazing and the most frustrating minutes of regulation ever. But we can go back and we can rewatch that now, knowing the outcome over and over and over and over again. So that's what I got. Those are my happy thoughts on this game.
I wanted to add a little something else with the happy thoughts. One, in the time it takes to walk from my kitchen to my living room, the Chiefs moved 40 plus yards downfield for a field goal. Think about that. I mean, everybody says, oh, 13 seconds, 13 seconds. I mean, that's the time it takes to grab a glass out of the cabinet and put tap water in it. The Chiefs moved 40 yards.
Well, not even
And
that,
it's,
because it was only 10 seconds.
yeah, well, there you go. Yeah.
10 seconds to go 44 yards. The last 3 seconds was the field goal.
So, think about how brief that is. From the time I just said that to now, it's been 10 seconds. The Chiefs moved 44 yards. And also too, what you said about the offensive line. I want to say one of the big takeaways we had been saying for weeks, oh, the Chiefs got their groove back. The NFL should be afraid, and I don't think really anybody was afraid until this game. I believe you put on Twitter or in Discord that the Chiefs faced 92 to 95% of that too high look.
92%. Yep.
And Mahomes ate that up. Ran when he had to, took all the high probability throws across the middle. Didn't do. I think you also put in there he didn't take any deep shots, or I saw that he didn't take any deep shots. I mean, so now you should be afraid, because if Mahomes has figured it out that the big plays can come even with those. I mean, that was what, a 10-yard cross by Tyreek that went 60 some yards.
Right.
It's all there. And if he's mastered that they call it patience, I'm gonna call it going against his natural tendencies. I think he's patient. I think he was already patient, but I think the player in him, from having to carry his high school football team and having to be the one to carry Texas Tech, and then initially, his second year, 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. I think when you play that way, I think it's only natural to continue playing the way everybody does it. When you're successful at something, you continue doing that thing because it was successful. And if he's mastered the ability to play, to refine his game to where he knows he can still take the deep shots, but he's taking the underneath, it's going to be a bad day for a lot of teams in the NFL. in the future. And now I
Right.
think I'm done.
Well, and the other thing, and I can't remember who it was. Could have been anyone at this point. But someone was talking about the Chiefs finally utilizing, maybe it was Dan, finally utilizing CEH the proper way. And if you combine that with McKinnon's, outside speed game and all of this coming together, um, yeah, I think it's going to be really hard to stop. And, even thinking towards next year, if Jody comes back healthy, we keep talking about, oh, we need wide receiver number two, we need wide receiver number two. Well, we're starting to see Pringle and Hardman step forward, maybe solidifying receiver number 4 and 5, wide receiver number, you know, 2 and 3. And if Jody slips in between them after Travis, and you have Tyreek, Travis, or however you want to order it, but you have Tyreek, Travis, Jody, and then you have Pringle and Hardman, and they stay healthy, I think that's a pretty solid 1 through 5 receiving group. And so, I think that changes things. And then if you throw Gray in the mix, maybe they do add a receiver in free agency, or maybe they do add one in the draft. But I'm not too sure if they plan on extending Tyreek that they're going to add much to the receiver room. Because, like I said, if Jody comes back next year, what we saw of him in the short time we saw from him, he was the guy that Pat would actually trust to throw it up and come down with it. And if Pringle is re-signed and he continues on how he's been playing, and they continue to find the proper ways to get McColl the ball, and you have those 5 guys, and then, again, you throw in Noah Gray if he progresses next year, his sophomore season. And if it's even possible, if Cornell Powell, makes progression to even, at least be on the bubble for the 53, or even Doris Fountain, and so I think there's some positivity with this. And I'm going to be critical later, so I'm trying really hard to not throw in anything critical right now, because we do want to celebrate this win. When you try to be balanced, you have the tendency to stop yourself from going over at any point to one extreme or the other. So it can be hard sometimes to allow yourself to just really enjoy a win, or and so I think it's really important, no matter what happens next week. We have to remind ourselves, one, it's just a game. There are so many things in life that are so much more important. It's just a game. Um, and so, and that goes either way, whether we win or lose. If we win, it's still just a game, and we can become consumed with that too much in an unhealthy way either way. And so, I think that's all I'm going to say about it right now, other than, at this point, we're going to enjoy it, and we can enjoy it longer than the players could, because they've been on to the Bengals, or at least they should have been on to the Bengals 4 days ago. So at this point, I'm getting really tired of hearing about how the Chiefs only won because of a coin flip and Mahomes getting the ball first in overtime. And, as Chiefs fans, this is kind of a mixed and sore subject for us, having been on the other side of this, 4 years back now, and the Chiefs proposing a rule change to overtime, and essentially everybody laughing at the Chiefs, everybody making fun of the fan base, telling us to suck it up, to not make excuses, and to move on because those were the rules. We knew the rules, and every team but Dallas voted against Kansas City's proposal to change overtime in the playoffs so that both teams, regardless of a touchdown, would get a possession. So my question is, Gooch, do overtime rules need to change?
No. Uh, um, I'm going to be the guy, and you're going to beat me up in the comments, I'm sure, but I'm going to be the critical thinker here. Okay. And I usually am the one that doesn't have the most popular opinion. So let me throw this out there. And I'm just going to piggyback off of what you said. When Tom Brady didn't give Patrick Mahomes a chance to hold the ball in overtime, and we proposed that rule change, like you said, everybody laughed. Oh, the Chiefs are just sore losers. Now all of a sudden, the flavor of the month comes in, and the same thing happens to him, and it's, oh, we need to change the overtime rules. Because in this society, they build you up and they want you to be built up just to tear you down. Because the assumption is that had the overtime rules been changed, the Chiefs wouldn't be in the AFC Championship game. But if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. That's what I'm saying. Let's point out the fact that the number one defense in the league, yes, the number one defense in the league played prevent for 13 seconds.
10 seconds.
10 seconds, excuse me, 10 seconds. They played prevent. This is the number one defense in the league. And none of them thought to put their hands on Tyreek or Travis on those two plays. Not reroute them a little bit, not even get them off their route for a second. The number one defense. But now the overtime rules need to change. Most games, when there's 13 seconds left, let me put it like this. If you were facing Tannehill, Garoppolo, Tua, who I absolutely love, he's an Alabama boy, anybody else, 13 seconds isn't enough time. When you're facing Mahomes, Rodgers, obviously Allen's proven he can throw the ball and stuff like that. Very few quarterbacks, maybe Herbert. 13 seconds is an eternity, especially when, and I want to put this out there too, you guys knock Andy for his time management. Guess who went into the last 13 seconds with 3 timeouts? And used them perfectly. But you can't change the rules because you lost in overtime. You had 13 seconds in regulation. Heck, even I, the most staunch Chiefs fan, at 13 seconds said, all they really got to do is play tight. This game's over. Like any type of defense whatsoever, this game's over. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was still a great game, and I wouldn't have been mad if they lost because of the way that they played at the end. But any kind of defense, and it's like, oh, you should have squibbed it, or you should have kicked it high and let it drop. Shannon Sharp said on Undisputed, he said, doesn't matter. Everybody's like, oh, you should have squibbed it. Doesn't matter. Because the clock doesn't run until a Chiefs player touches the ball. So they could have just as easily just let it sit there and made somebody from the Bills touch it. And you're still looking at what, 47, 50 yards to go instead of 44? I mean, clock didn't start. So, I mean, you can't really bash the Bills coach for that because a lot of people would have kicked off into the end zone. Because for all intents and purposes, you're not supposed to be able to go 50 yards in 10 seconds. You're just not. And then, so we'll etch out the 13 seconds. You get into overtime. You're the number one defense in the league. How do I know this? All as they talked about up to the game was the Bills' number one defense and their two all-pro safeties, and how their defense didn't get anybody into the Pro Bowl, and how great they were. And this is when Josh Allen was going to overtake Mahomes, and Josh Allen was the best quarterback in the league, and all he really needed was the ball. Then your defense should have stepped up, because Mahomes, when he didn't touch the ball, he didn't blame the overtime rules. He blamed his defense, which is why I can't think of his name now. Sutton, which is why Sutton got fired and Spags got hired. Because after the game, he didn't say, "Oh, the overtime rules killed us." Word is he went into the locker room, yelled at the coaching staff, the defensive coordinator, and said, "I'm not going to lose like this ever again." The Bills suffered it. The problem is the Bills suffered it too much, and everybody feels bad for them because the Bills also suffered the Music City Miracle. I don't think they need to change. I think it's perfect because it forces you to step up. It forces you to show your heart. That's why they say touchdown wins, or if you kick a field goal, the other team gets a possession. Touchdown for them, they win. Field goal, probably the game is tied. What are you trying to do? Tell these grown, multi-million-dollar athletes who put their bodies on the line for 18 weeks that, hey, now we're just going to revert to college and we're going to play till there's a clear winner? Do you know the the probability of injury, career ending, next season ending injury if you change the overtime rules and you try to go college? Nobody wants to play that. Honestly, no real NFL fan really wants to see you go back and forth in overtime to the tune of 65-60. We would want the game over. We talk all that trash, change the overtime rules. We don't want that because there's too high of a probability of your stars getting hurt. And by the time, if you, let's say it is college and you go back and forth, how many of you guys turn it off and decide I'll just wait for the replay or the highlights or whatever? I would have. I'm like, man, this game's going on too long. I got stuff I got to do. My personal opinion, people probably don't agree with it, but it's the one thing. Like, the Bills didn't win in the confines of the rules. They had the number one defense, and they got shredded by the best quarterback in the league. I mean, just that's my opinion. I'm gonna leave it to you.
Yeah, first off, I want to say that I think comparing the two games like doesn't really hold water. Um, Partially because in our overtime loss, well, two things. One, in our overtime loss, we were the home team. We didn't even get to call heads or tails. We were the home team. We didn't get to call heads or tails. We were the home team. Either way, we didn't get to call heads or tails. And the Patriots won the coin toss. They got the ball. They went down and scored. In this game, Josh Allen was the Bills captain, and he got to call heads or tails. So at least there's, some tiny bit of control there that the Chiefs didn't have in that game because they didn't even get to call heads or tails. Um, the other thing is we don't think of that game. To Chiefs fans, that's not the overtime loss to the Patriots, right? That's not how it's categorized in our mind. That game is the D Ford game. It's the D Ford game. It's not the overtime loss to the Patriots game. It's the D Ford game. And the reason it's the D Ford game is because we all recognize we had the game-winning interception. An idiot boy can't get himself on the right side of the line of scrimmage and erases that game-winning interception. So we don't go on and we don't blame overtime for that loss. I don't even remember Chiefs fans. I think we were crushed and annoyed by it But I don't ever remember Chiefs fans like being annoyed and saying, to an extent, and blaming it fully on overtime and saying this, we lost because of overtime. It was we lost because of D Ford. Like that was the immediate reaction, at least in my circle and my experience with Chiefs fans. Um, I can be convinced of this, and I'll tell you, I can admit that 4 years ago, my decision was an emotive-based decision. I can be convinced of this, but you have to give me a good logical, not an emotive based, not an emotional charged reason for changing overtime. I've heard some logical explanations of why overtime should stay. I've even seen non-Chiefs players on Twitter the last few days saying, "Hey, listen, it's not an overtime problem." Um, there's some people out there who just want an illusion of control over things. It just kind of depends on what you think the overtime rule should be. If you think the overtime rule should be that both teams get an opportunity to possess the ball, regardless of whether the first team scores a touchdown, which was part of the Chiefs' proposal, to me that's illogical. It just doesn't make sense. Because your argument goes like this: both teams should be able to have their offense on the field, and then after that, if both teams score a touchdown, you're in sudden death overtime, and then whatever happens happens. Well, here's the problem with that. There are multiple problems with that. The first problem is you had that exact same scenario before overtime. The Bills had the ball, they went down, they scored with what? They scored right after the 2-minute warning with 1 minute and 54 seconds left. The Chiefs then went down the field and they scored
with 1:09 left.
The Bills got the ball back with 1 minute and 2 seconds left. They went down the field and they scored. Then we got the ball with 13 seconds left, and we went down and we tied up the game in 10 seconds. So in this game, a lot of people will argue, it should be a full team win or loss. So offense should get a chance, in addition to defense. Well, in the span of the last 2 minutes of this game, the offense got multiple chances, the defense got multiple chances, special teams got multiple chances. This was a full team loss for the Bills. That's being overshadowed because their quarterback played great against a defense that was without their best zone corner in Rashad Fenton and their best safety and all-around defensive secondary player and the brains of the secondary in Tyrann Mathieu. But my point is so, the last couple of minutes there, that's each team getting a possession. And then what? The moment the Chiefs tie that game at the end of regulation, you have sudden death overtime. So what's the difference whether both teams got the ball and then you had sudden death overtime to begin overtime, or if you do it and both teams get the ball in overtime and then you have a sudden death? Because if people say, well, the way this game was going, whoever scored first, whoever got the ball first was going to score a touchdown. Okay, let's say that both teams got a possession and then the Bills went down and scored a touchdown too. So what? What would that have changed? Because the way the defenses were playing, the Chiefs are just going to go back down the field and score again and win in sudden death overtime after both teams got the ball. Sorry, I forgot to put these on.
Oh, here come the HGs.
So what are you really arguing for? You want some kind of illusion of control, an illusion of fairness? Because there is no fairness even with those rules. And that's why I'm saying the Chiefs were wrong in their proposal. Because even with that, there's no real such thing as fairness there. Because, like we said, in this game, if both teams score a touchdown, it still goes back to who got the ball first in overtime. Okay, so your issue is one of two things. It's either the coin flip and you want a more fair way to decide. I proposed something like let both teams kickers like go back and forth, from greater distances until one of them misses. Whatever. You can think of different ways to decide who gets the ball first in overtime, but somebody's argument was that the majority of overtime games in the playoffs anyway tend to favor the team that starts with the ball first, like 64% of the time. Okay, so if that's the case, it really doesn't matter if both teams get the ball. It only really matters if you're the first team to get the ball, because if you score a touchdown and they score a touchdown, you still get the ball back to either kick the game-winning field goal in sudden death or another touchdown. And as I proposed to someone else who was talking about this, what's easier to do, Gooch? Is it easier for your defense to prevent a field goal, or is it easier for your defense to prevent a touchdown? It's easier for your defense to prevent a touchdown. So if both teams get a possession and both teams score a touchdown, and then it's sudden death and all you have to do is kick a field goal, that's much easier. And that's a lot harder for the defense that was on the field first. And so it doesn't make sense when people propose overtime rules to change, and that's the proposal they give. If you want to go something more towards fair, you can actually come up with a proposal that makes sense, logical sense, like each team gets 2 possessions to score as many points as possible. And then if it's still tied, next point wins. That would be more fair. But you can't. I've seen morons out there that actually get paid, Kyle Brandt, who likened this to baseball. Baseball doesn't run on a clock. Each team gets a set number of opportunities. 9 innings, 9 opportunities. You get an opportunity, I get an opportunity. Back and forth for 9 innings. And then if it's tied, it still goes back and forth. You get an opportunity, I get an opportunity until someone wins. It's not a timed sport with 4 quarters like football is. So it's not the same. And if you're wanting fairness, you would have to come up with some kind of system similar to that for overtime. Because otherwise it all comes back to who gets the ball first. Because once you both get an opportunity and once you both score a touchdown, you're still back to sudden death, which is no different than both teams possessing the ball at the end of the 4th quarter, and that's both teams getting a touch, and then the sudden death being the beginning of overtime. It's the exact same thing. It's just a matter of semantics, an illusion of fairness. So that's why I'm against overtime rules as people are proposing those changes. If you come up with some kind of sensical, logical way to replace a coin flip, fine. But still the issue then is whoever gets the ball first. So come up with a fair way, for eliminating that problem, and maybe I'm with you. Otherwise, you're just saying I want it to look like it's more fair. I want an illusion of control if it's my team, that they can be out on the field. And that I'm not for. I'm not for anything that's pseudo or an illusion or illogical. So give me something logical, and I'm happy to consider your logical argument for it. But as it stands right now, I haven't seen a logical explanation, and therefore a logical excuse for the Bills losing this game.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
We'll beat the Bengals, though.
Sorensen and Neiman see less than 10% of the snaps. We actually bracket Jamar Chase. And we don't have the second half like in week 17, where I believe Keys eloquently put we had 122 total yards and 3 points in 30 minutes of football. I think both teams have explosive offenses. I think Mixon is a beast. I've always liked him. I think Jamar Chase is a beast. I've always liked him. And for an LSU guy, I think Burrow's not bad. But I also think that our team is more experienced, and I think Andy learns from his mistakes. So, um, I actually I don't know what stalled out week 17, but I think if Andy comes with the same kind of aggressiveness since Pittsburgh, so Pittsburgh and then how we played the Bills, like please, please, please bracket Jamar Chase. Um, don't let him burn. But see, I say that, and then look what they did to Diggs. Like Diggs had 4 catches, 7 yards, but they let that other guy whoop us for 4 touchdowns. Which I believe, again, as me and Keys have spoken, because we speak on Twitter and in text message, had Tyron been out there, that guy doesn't get 4 touchdowns. This game may not be as close as it was. It may not go to overtime. But again, if and buts for candy and nuts, right? Um, we need to keep an eye on Jamar Chase. Tyron needs to be healthy, and Andy needs to stay as aggressive as he has been. And I think this game is in the bag. I actually think the Chiefs win by 10.
Yeah. I feel really good about this game if the same offense we saw in the Bills game against that supposed number one defense is the same offense or even better than what had shown up in previous weeks. We will win this game, one, if the refs call the game similar to the way they have in the Chiefs playoff games so far, in contrast to the way it was called the first time we played them. And I could almost maybe stop right there. Um, we tend to forget, well, fans haven't forgotten the penalties part of this, but, this was a game that was won at the very last second. It was also a game where our defense stopped the Bengals at the goal line and should have had a turnover on downs. And there were missed penalties like a false start and things like that. But the Bengals did the exact opposite that the Bills did. Right, the Bills went down and they scored with 13 seconds left. Now they needed 4, so it's not like they could run it down and play it safe and just kick a field goal. But there's still a difference there with the way that those two games were coached. So we're also going to need a great coached game as well. For me, like you said, we got to press. Got to press. This game to me is about the defensive backs. Are the refs going to let them play? Is our coaching staff going to show up? Are they going to do their jobs? Because we need to see cornerbacks pressing. We need to see cornerbacks using the sidelines as an extra defender. We need to see safety help that actually helps. I do believe that we can shut down Chase because we did shut down Diggs. Our defenders have went up against Tyreek before. And so, maybe that led to some overconfidence, but there are ways that Spags can make adjustments, and he's smarter than I am, so I'll be really angry if he doesn't make, good adjustments. But there are ways out there. They have analytics that we don't have. They know where Burrow likes to throw the ball. They know where Burrow likes to throw the ball when someone brings pressure from this side or that side, this down, this distance. They know all of those things. They have all those analytics. They have guys who break that stuff down for them. They also have film from playing against them now. They know all these things. So they should be able to come up with the plan. Now, I do think the Bengals have a deeper wide receiver cast than the other teams that we've faced so far because they can beat you with T. Higgins. Like we said in our first breakdown of the Bengals game. T. Higgins dominated against the Ravens, so he's capable of that. Tyler Boyd can sneak in there as well. Uzuma is a pretty good tight end. And so, there's four weapons that you have to be concerned with. The first time we played them, they tried to run a little bit, but they weren't as committed to that as I thought that they would be. Maybe that changes in this game, and they go more to handing the ball off to Mixon. But I think it's kind of hard to not look at what Tennessee was able to do, and they only gave up 16 points against the Bengals, and Tannehill had what, 3 interceptions that he threw?
4.
4? So that not only killed Tennessee's offense, but it also gave the Bengals 4 extra chances, and they still only walked away with 19. That being 16-16 until a last-second field goal made it 19-16. So they only got 16 points off of their regular possessions and then 4 extra possessions. Now, in a lot of ways, I don't think our defense is as good as Tennessee's defense, but in some ways, it's hard for me to fathom that any of our defensive backs are any worse than Janoris Jackrabbit Jenkins. And so, I think that we can still get pressure on Burrow. I think that, they're going to have to bring the coaching staff is going to have to bring the A game on this, right? Daly and Spags, all these guys, they're going to have to bring their A games. They're going to have to they're going to have to come up with some creative, line moves to get pressure with just 4 guys. They're going to have to figure out a way to run dime without taking their best players off the field. They're going to have to coach the cornerbacks in this game. As I already said, you got to press. You got to press. And I'm not talking about what Seth said on Chief in the North. Just being in front of the receiver, that's not pressing to me. You have to get your hands on. You have to slow them down, redirect. You have to cause an extra half a second or second. You get Burrow to flinch and you get a sack. Like, you have to do it. You have to use the sideline as your help. And we have to have safety help. But we also have to wrap up because we missed a lot of tackles at the beginning of the game the last time we played the Bengals. And, a chunk of those were Burrow himself. We haven't looked that great tackling quarterback, whether it was Burrow or Allen or some of these other guys out there. So we got to do a better job at that. And, I feel like I'm using up all my time here on defense. But really the only thing I could even add on offense, other than keep doing what you're doing, is stop letting EB call the plays at any point in the game. Because it sure felt like there was a moment in the beginning part of the Bills game that EB was calling the plays. And we have a tendency to go back and forget some of those things. To me, it's really about the coaching staff doing the little things, looking at all the nuanced things, and really coming up with an A-plus game plan for this game. And if they can't do that, then they can take a walk as far as I'm concerned, because you can't. We've seen this with Aaron Rodgers now, and people make fun of him, but we've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. You can't waste a talent. You can't waste the possibility of a dynasty because you're lazy as a coach or you're stubborn as a coach. And so they got to bring an A-plus game. And if they bring an A-plus game and players let them down, that's an issue for Veach to replace players next season. But the coaching staff has to bring an A-plus game. And right now, I've seen an A-plus game out of the offense, second quarter on? And I've seen pretty much an F game from the defense that whole Bills game. We got to see much better from the defense. And even special teams, too. All right, Gooch, pay the bills.
We appreciate anybody that's watched this content, whether religiously or in passing. We hope you're having a great day, leading into a great weekend. Check us out on the RGR channel. Like, subscribe. Think about becoming a member. When you become a member, join us in the Discord. Me and Keys are always there. Join the RGR store. Take a look around in there. Get you a hoodie or a mug. The Picks Pool with Aaron, the mod father, who's in our live streams. Navigating all of us crazy people in the comments. He's got a video up. Big Chief Sean does a tailgating thing. Make sure you watch that. Live streams on Monday. Game plans during the week. Chief in the North with Seth Kaiser on Thursday. Join his Substack. It's really good reading. Above all else, before me and Keys were on Twitter. Join us there. You can send Keys anything. Keys will tag me. You can send me anything. We'll tag Keys, and we'll get a discussion going. Let's keep it above board, though, guys. But we do respond as soon as we can. Above all else, make sure you tell somebody that you love them. It's really important. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.
Hey.
You catch what I did there? I did the early piece.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Later.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.